Live, brought to you from UH Kitchen. Welcome back, everybody. Happy November and almost Thanksgiving. So tonight we have kind of almost some options for you. We have a couple of dishes that could be a side dish for you at Thanksgiving. And then we also have a soup that you could use for any time. So tonight we're going to cook a kabocha squash with brown butter, marshmallows, and pecans. We have a Brussels sprout recipe and then the white bean soup recipe. So let's get started. You all have a list as well that you can use as your guide, and that is your labeled ingredients. We do apologize if your oil has leaked. Hopefully you have some olive oil on hand, but otherwise, if you don't have olive oil, you could use canola oil or any type of other oil that you might have. Avocado oil would work too. So you have a kabocha, half a kabocha pumpkin. So first off, we'll rinse the outside of it. So we'll rinse it off real quick. And then we're going to scrape out the seeds. So it's, and actually you could roast the seeds if you want. Another good option for them. But you can carve it out. Okay, and then we're going to cut it into some sections. And then we're going to, instead of trying to peel it with a peeler, use a knife. I'm going to try and use a paring knife to cut through some of that heavy skin because it's pretty thick skinned. So we'll cut it in half. You're going to have to give yourself a little bit of a push down on it. And if it's easier for you to use a paring knife on this size, I think it might actually be easier to give us another couple of cuts, and then I can use a paring knife. Again, make sure your fingers are out of the way. Does anybody know what a kabocha, or where, what we call it? What's another name for kabocha pumpkin? Or I kind of gave you the halfway there. Kabocha squash. Sometimes it's referred to as something else. I don't know if anybody has an idea what that would be. Any ideas? Does anybody know where it was introduced? Because it was kind of introduced in a certain area first, and that might help you understand what an alternative name is for it.
Japan.
Japan. Yeah, so it's Japanese pumpkin. I think that made it easier. So again, whatever your, whoops, I caught it. Whatever your process for cutting it down. And then I think if you use a paring knife on it, that will give you that option to get right below the skin. Just watch your fingers. And you don't have to get all the way to the orange. You can actually leave a little bit of the green on. We're going to peel it off like this. It's just really a tough skin. So using a peeler may not be that effective and timely for you. So make sure you're cautiously doing with a paring knife. Is anybody cooking with us tonight? Jesse? If you are, we'll make sure we're keeping up with our timing.
Oh, that's wrong.
Oh, very good. Okay. Yay. Okay.
Then Sandra asked, or not asked, she said that she doesn't normally peel the kabocha.
Oh, well, I'm sure you could leave some of the skin on. I think there's some edges that are a little bit like a rough spot on them. And this is somewhat of a replacement to a traditional dish with the yams. So that's why I think it's more of the peeled. But if you wanted to do a half peeled, half not, I think based on our time, because this is going to roast for about 30 minutes on a 400-degree oven. So it really is, it does take time to peel it. We should have thought to have you peel them and cut them ahead of time. Are we okay? Okay. We're still with you. We've just got a glitch on our camera. So I think I'll try the half, half peeled and half unpeeled just because of time. We do have a fairly simplified cooking tonight, so it shouldn't be too bad. It's just we want to get these into roast. And if you do that thinner sliced, you can do that paring knife down the edge pretty easy. Just watch your fingers. So kabocha is a really nice loaded beta carotene kind of a squash. There are plenty of squash options out there. This one's actually a little bit less in calories than your butternut squash if we think of prepared. So it offers you a little lighter option. The kabocha is, again, obviously has all our beta carotene and the vitamin A. So vitamin A and all the support for free radical tissue support is one of the benefits of using these. And like I said, I'll try and do like 50% peeled and 50% off, but I'll take off some of these high nubs. That one's pretty clean. That one looks good. A little bit of, because the skin is pretty thin. So if you cook it, it would soften. And we're trying to get to that soft texture of a cooked squash. And there are lots of different types of squash out there that we cook with. Anybody think of some other squashes that you use it either locally here or that you've used before that you want to share?
Spaghetti squash.
Different types of squash? Spaghetti squash, right. So there's winter squash and then there is summer squash. And the biggest difference is the skin. So the skin on winter squash is usually much thicker, much hardier than your summer squash. If you think about zucchini or yellow squash, it's definitely a softer skin that you eat the whole thing. So when you roast, anytime you roast, you're going at a high temperature. So try to get your pieces pretty consistent. Otherwise you'll have some cooking faster than others. So if you can do a, cut off the edges or somehow get it to the point where you are getting a similar chop. And again, this is going to be what you're biting into. So get something that's close to a easy mouth consumption. All right, and then you have, I don't know if I want to cut that even smaller, but I'll cut it this way. So try and get, again, the similar sizes. And just have a little bit of a little power behind your slicing. If it's easier to cut it on the side, you can do that. What other squashes have some of you cooked with? Chayote. Yeah, that's another really nice one. And we actually, if you go back into the history of all of our recipes, we did a crostini with kabocha squash last November. So you can look that up. That was another really nice recipe. Great flavors. Which kind? Oppo. I have not seen that. Is that a winter squash or a summer squash? It's a long green squash. Oh. I think people call it what they call it something other. I've heard, I think, different names with it. But I think I know which one you're referring to. They're long skin, or they're long and skin, not skinny, but they're smooth skinned. I think I've seen those. Filipino version. Yeah, I have seen those. Another nice option. So your green is going to show up a little bit when you cook it and roast it. So that's kind of a nice color variance. The trick is we're going to get that, we want that soft texture. So that's why we're starting with this. I think that'll go too skinny. Let's see what else I have on kabocha. I think I just have a whole list of different squashes that we can use. Again, think of think of the seeds as an option to roast. You could turn around and you could actually roast it with your squash. Just a little bit more olive oil, salt and pepper. Then you have roasted kabocha seeds. Good source of protein, good source of fiber. Then you're not losing anything down the drain. So got a mixture of your squash. You have a aluminum pan with some parchment paper. So we'll kind of fold that in half and flatten it out in here. And then you can put your squash on top. Actually, I'm thinking about your timing on your seeds. Your seeds would probably only take maybe 15 minutes. So you probably would want to put those in after you started your squash. Okay, so this is actually going to be our pan that we're going to finish off the kabocha in. So once the roasting is done, then we'll pull off the parchment paper, but you should have some olive oil that I have labeled as, I think it's RKJO. RKSO, roasted kabocha squash. So we're going to pour that across the top. Just drizzle as close as we can to most of it. You might have to toss it a bit. Toss our, and try. This just helps a little bit with the moisture. Plus it gives a little bit of flavor. And anytime we roast vegetables, what are we doing to the sugars? That's what makes them taste so good. What's that process that happens with your sugars when you roast veggies? Single layer, flatten them out, and we'll get them in the oven. So we're going to put them in the oven. I'm going to start at 25. I don't want them to overcook. So we'll start at 25. And then if we need to go further, we can. But you can try, just keep an eye on them. You don't want to get them overly soft and we don't want to have the burned edges. Oh, I got to put my, ooh, yeah. Salt and pepper. Thank you. I'm always thankful for my backup. Yeah, caramelizing the sugars. There we go. All right. I got them all. Just make sure you also get them kind of in a flat layer so that you don't have any overlap, so that they're not blocking the cooking. And we're ready to put them in the oven. And we're going to go for 25 minutes and see how we do. My oven seems a little cool, so I'll keep an eye on it. And then next we'll get your pecans ready. So you have some pecans and we're going to chop them. So we don't have to go super fine, but you want to chop them at least so that you have a bit more than just big chunks. Because remember, this is again bite size. And then we'll toast them in a pan. So you have a dry heat pan, or if you have a toaster oven, you could do it, run them through a toast cycle, maybe like a 3 and 3 toast cycle, selection 3, brown 3, and see if you like it, and then go as much as you want, but you don't want to go too dark. All right. So we'll put those in a pan. And then we're going to toast them right here on the stovetop. Okay. Move that over. So again, we don't want to go too fast. So you probably want to do medium heat. Or it talks about, what does it even say? Just talks about dry roasting. So we're going to try and get these, let me put my handle on there a little better. Let me get my gas up. I'll go over medium. And the thing is not to let them sit too long. You want to get them, because they will, if you let them go too long, they'll burn. So you want to get them to the point where you kind of smell them. And we actually did a really nice, here's another recipe to go back to if you want. And we did a really nice roasted pecan, candied pecan on a stovetop last December. I think we did. That was like a orange, had orange essence to it. So it was a really nice recipe. So you can do this, like I said, in an oven, or you can do it in a pan. Either way. So we're going to let that kind of toast up and they'll get that nice flavor. What we're going to do next will be our soup. So if you get your beans ready, and you might have 2 types of beans, which is fine because it's a combination of bean soup. So we'll have, I'm going to watch that real close, but I'll get we're going to rinse and drain your beans. So when you get your beans, you can do a quick rinse on them, drain them. If you have a colander, you could use your colander and rinse them off that way. If you don't, one of the ways you can do it, and I'll show you how you can do it here, is just fill your can up, you know, get the liquid out. Sorry, you're going to see all of my cuts in here. We're going to drain it. We'll put a little bit of water in it. I'm going to shake it around. We'll keep getting a good drain. Okay. You just want to get that. So one of the purposes of rinsing beans is really more for, so here's sorry, I'm multitasking here. Here's my nuts that are getting a little bit, my pecans getting a little more toasted. You can smell them now. So as soon as you smell that toasted, you're done. Okay, so I will, I need to set those aside, turn off my heat so they don't cook anymore. One of the purposes of rinsing your beans is just to drop off that sodium content. It's not, you're not losing that much nutritional value. The fiber coming from the beans is all still there. You're just dropping off some of that sodium. I do have I should have had us cue this song up. I want you all to look up, if you're familiar with Josh Groban, I want you to look up Josh Groban Bean Song. And it is a classic that I thought was very good. It's actually, he did it for Bush's Beans. And it's such a fun song. And of course, you know, everybody talks about you can't eat beans because they're problematic, cause gas, but it is such a cute song. And he did a really nice job of that. So that is something that you can check out on your time, is Josh Groban's The Bean Song. One of those fun options. So I'm going to drain off. Oops, I don't want to lose them. Interesting fact about beans, you don't want to eat them raw. So they have a toxin in them that causes problems for us. So we don't eat beans raw. We definitely want to have them cooked. So generally you soak them, you could soak them overnight if you're not buying canned beans, which are already pre-cooked. So yes, you can eat beans right out of the can. You don't have to worry about heating them up, but you do have to cook dried beans. And if you have dried beans on hand, then you want to soak them overnight, or, you know, anywhere from 6 to 10 hours, and put them in the refrigerator so that you're not creating a fermentation process. But you can actually soak them overnight, and that pulls off some of that, the challenges with the complex carb that causes the flatulence. So that's one of the ways that you can do that. And interesting, some fun facts around beans. We actually have a National Bean Day, and that was all around, if you've heard the name Gregor Mendel. How many of you have heard that name before? Probably a long time back. I don't know if anybody remembers the name. The bean, remember the whole, we learned about genetics and how the traits and genetic traits, the hereditary process. What's that? Yes. So that is, he died on January 6th, 1884. So January 6th is the bean day, and it's January 6th, 2023. You'll find beans for us. So that's your national bean day. So my pecans are toasted. I'm going to let them stay at that level. Again, it depends on how much darker you want them, but we don't want to get them burnt. Okay. So those are just right. So now we've got our soup, and we are going to, we drain our beans, right? And you have onion, garlic, carrot, celery. So you're going to drop off this. We're going to dice up our onion or slice it. Again, you don't have to wash your onion, but make sure you trim off any of the extra edges. You can wash off your parsley that came with that packet and your carrot. You can peel your carrot or you can leave it with the peeling on. It's up to you. And I'll set my parsley aside and I'll wash my celery stick. So we're going to get the olive oil ready to go. And that is in the MBSO. So Mediterranean bean soup oil. Okay, so we're going to put that into your pan. That into, get it warm. Then I'm going to wait for that to add my onion. So we're going to dice up our onion. So we're going to take off a little bit of the edges. Because it doesn't have a root on it. Your roots have, or your ends have been taken off for you, which was very nice. You can do it with the grain of the onion, so you can cut lengthwise, and then we can come back and chop it. So I'm going to do my traditional onion cut, which I get all lined up, and then I can chop across and it'll cut everything. Size is all based on what your preference is. So if you like that smaller bite of an onion, you can do that. Same with your carrot and your celery. So it's all right if it's falling apart. We're going to just line it up and go across the top, and then we'll be able to cut it. So I'm going to line it up this way. So it looks like a nice stack. Then I'll just be able to go across. Okay. If it starts to get loose on you, then you can let that fall, and then we'll just cut the rest of it on the cutting board. Just keep your fingers safe and out of the way. All right. If you feel like you need to add a little more cuts to it, you are welcome to do that. So a carrot, I will, it even looks like our ends were cut for us, which is, again, what a great, we set you up really nicely. And we're going to chop up our carrots. So probably cut it in half, and then I'll cut it down the center. Size, again, if you're doing similar size, that will help your cooking time. So I'm going to go one more slice down my carrot. That way I have all about the similar size. I'm going to do the same with the celery. The tops are good. So I'll line it up and chop it. What other beans do we use in cooking?
Black
Today you have, I
beans.
think, mixtures of white beans, cannellini beans, black beans. There you go. What else? What else do we use? Kidney beans. So interesting fact on kidney beans. That's one of the worst for your lectin, which is that toxin. So you definitely do not want to consume raw kidney beans. And I wouldn't imagine too many people would be eating raw kidney beans or raw beans, because they're definitely hard. I'm just going to trim off the ends of my celery and we're going to chop this. Pinto beans, good. Garbanzo beans, right? So I think I'm gonna do 3 slices of 3. And then we'll make about the same size. Okay. There we go. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to mince our garlic. So we have a clove of garlic for you. If you would like to add more garlic, you are welcome to. We tried this a bit earlier and you could definitely add more garlic. I mean, there's nothing wrong with adding garlic. So we'll get the skin off, we'll mince it, take that end off. And I think I'll add just one more clove. Smash it a bit, and then I'll be able to peel it. So, world's tallest bean plant. Any guesses? I always give you all these fun facts. 2003, world's tallest bean plant was grown in the US. This was in the US. Any idea? I want to guess on how tall was this bean plant? Pretty close. All the way up to the mountains, right? All the way to the high, into the clouds. 25 feet? We got to go higher. Oh, close. A little bit less than 50. It was actually 45 feet tall. So just to give you a reference point, because I thought this was kind of fun, that's 3 giraffes stacked on top of one another. That's 45 feet tall. Rough guess. And then also that would be 100. This is another fun fictional or fun fact. 118 stacked cans of Coca-Cola or any kind of Pepsi can. 118 would be about 45 feet tall. However, we don't necessarily stack that many on top of each other because the chances of them falling over would be crazy. So I've got my garlic, my onions, and my carrot and celery ready. We're going to start cooking the onions first because you want to get those softer. We kind of want to get that process going for the onions, but we don't want to overcook our garlic because garlic will burn. And so I want you to start with your onions first, and then we'll add the carrots and the celery. So I'll separate. I should have kept them a little more separate. We'll pull them apart. And so you're going to start with your oil. Get your oil nice and toasty. Then we'll saute the onions until they're soft, about anywhere between 3-4 minutes. You make that call. Again, if the faster you're cooking them, the softer, but you don't want to burn them. So let's get our onions going. So we're going to go on medium, like medium high. And we're going to start those onions. We'll get that oil warmed up. How's our people cooking? How's our group that's cooking with us? How you doing? We're doing good? Hungry. That sounds like fun. Okay, so very good. So the and another kind of fun fact around beans, bean soup is in or on the US Senate's restaurant menu every single day. You can actually Google that recipe and you can get the Senate bean soup recipe. So that is out there and it's been going for over 100 years. So that's kind of a fun fact. States, when we talk about growing beans, they are grown in the US, and we actually have one of our mainland states is responsible for about 2/3 of our bean production that's grown here in the US. Does anybody have any idea where we would grow beans? Whoops. Why don't you think? I'll give you some hints. Cold states. So it's definitely not Hawaii. We might grow the like more like peas, but we're not growing beans. So cold state, mainland state. No, that's a good guess. Michigan is one. Michigan actually grows about 17% of our beans locally or nationally. What other state might be colder than Michigan? No, go more west. Come west on me on the map. We're gonna. Nope, not Alaska. Good guess. No, little above Idaho. Above Montana. No, Dakotas. So one of the most producing is North Dakota. Interesting fact there. Cold temperature state, right? I always used to think, I don't want to go to North Dakota because it's just too darn cold. So they grow beans. They have the beans for us. So I'm going to let that simmer or saute for about 3 more minutes. We'll see on my time. I'm watching my time. Then we'll get that ready. Then there was also another historical person that had a bean history. And that person was, I want to say this right, Pythagoras, a Greek philosopher and mathematician. And so he had a significant aversion to beans. And he actually was known as one of the fathers of vegetarianism. But he had such an aversion to beans that he wouldn't even walk through a bean field to get places. And so his actual demise became when he was being attacked or someone was after him and he wouldn't go through a bean field to survive. So he died not putting foot in a bean field. So a little bit of an interesting fact. And again, he was considered the father of vegetarianism. So lots of fun bean facts. But again, beans are really good. They're an alternative protein. So you really have some nice uses for beans. And there's, of course, the actual use for them as, meat replacers, as burgers, or anything that you're willing to try. We've done a black bean burger. Yep, and that was really tasty. Have we done any other bean? I don't think we've done any other bean recipes, but there are black bean cupcakes. There's bean brownies. Black bean brownies is another option. So my onions have softened up pretty good, but I'm trying to reduce the heat so I don't burn them because I don't want them to get dark, but still saute them. So then we will add I've got like another minute on those. We're going to add the carrots and the celery and the garlic next. Does somebody have something for us? They're what? Beautiful? That they were beautiful? Is that what she said? Or people? So I read that he was somewhat in belief that there was like to go to the next, after you die, you would go through the bean fields to go to the next location. And so that's why he was very against going through bean fields. And that's why he died, because he refused to go through a bean field when he was being attacked. So that just a little bit of factual history, or I shouldn't say even factual history. What does our internet tell us? Anything interesting? So that's what I had seen today. But if anybody has heard a little bit more, I would be interested in that too. So we're going to add the carrots and celery and garlic. Now, why didn't I put my garlic in with my onions? Why would I not put my onions and garlic together to saute? Turn my heat down some too. Exactly, because garlic will burn so easily. So rather than burn your garlic, you don't want to get that combination going. And we actually have almost a mirepoix here because we have carrots, celery, and onion. One of those real common used combinations in restaurants. So you can get your water. So we're going to do 3 cups of water. And you do have a vegetable base, which is like a paste. So we're going to put, I always try and do hot water with that. We'll get it nice and toasty. Timer's up for the 3 minutes on our time for. All right, so 3 cups of water, and my water wasn't real hot, but it's okay. We will put the vegetable base in there. I can get the lid off. And you'll want to scrape it out with a spoon. We're going to melt it into our, you might want to take a little bit of your water and move it around and get your, you can do it one of 2 ways. You can do it this way. I like to kind of incorporate the base before I put it into the soup mixture, but if you want to pour your water in and your base into the soup directly, you can do that as well. All right. So we're going to pour this in. My burner went off. Okay, we're going to add that. I'm going to get my base mixed up at the bottom. Oops. And your base will break down. Don't worry, it will break down in the soup mixture. So we are going to add the thyme and the oregano, which is your seasoning mixture. So that should be BSS. So we're going to add that into our mixture here. And we'll do the beans now as well. So that your beans should be pretty much drained off. Oops. We'll add the bag and your can. So it looks like we had white beans and then we have cannellini beans. So we'll, oh, they all have the same.
No. Actually, like beans, navy beans.
Okay, so they do have some variation. So you might have actually combination of beans, and cannellini are white, actually white kidney beans. So if you get down to the bottom and they're still kind of chunky in that, like their juice, you can swirl your mixture and it'll drop off. So we're going to add, how's our time? We're good. Okay, I'll check them. There we go. Okay, so we got that in and I'm going to stir that. And I'm also going to check on my kabocha. And we want to get a fork test. So I have a knife I can use as a, they look a little bit, they're getting there. So still pretty tough. So I think maybe like 10 more minutes. I'm going to say 10 minutes. We'll do a timer for 10 and see how we do. All right. So your soup, we're going to bring this up to a simmer. So maybe over anywhere from medium down. You want to get that simmer so it's not boiling. There's a difference between simmering and boiling. So you want to get your bubbles there, but not a rolling boil. So we'll get the heat started on them. I'll fire it up and get it hot, and then I'll bring it down to a simmer. And that basically is going to sit for a while as we are cooking the rest of our ingredients and cooking up our other goodies. So I can show you the next step on we'll go to the Brussels sprouts. Turn that down and we will let that simmer. And we're going to use your spinach. Was the spinach washed or do they need to wash their spinach? They need to wash it. So you have a bag of spinach, make sure you wash that before you are going to get ready to dump it into your soup. So I think what I'll do is I'll flood the bag. And drain it out. Less dishes, right? Use your bags. Then you don't have to wash any more dishes. But if you want to put it in a strainer, you can definitely do that. All right. So soup is getting close to a simmer. And let's get started on our Brussels sprouts. All right, I'll let that sit on the side. Brussels sprouts. So you should have a bag of Brussels sprouts in addition to your parsley that we're going to use. So we have two parsley bunches. One was for the soup and one is for your Brussels sprouts as a garnish. All right. So what we're going to start out with is your Brussels sprouts. I always rinse them first. Really, they're nicely protected from stuff, but if you see any leaves that are brown or squishy, then you can get rid of that. Like there might be a spot on there. You can cut that off or peel it off. But Brussels sprouts are a fun little mini cabbage, right? How do you get that small option into or the big benefit of cabbage into something so small? So here is your Brussels sprouts, and we're going to oops, let me find my fun facts on my Brussels. Where does Brussels sprouts, where'd they get the name? As I'm peeling so we're going to cut the ends off. And we can keep, don't let these go down the drain, but we'll keep these and we're going to put them in, cut it in half. So where do we get the name Brussels sprouts? And it's actually Brussels. Where do we get Brussels sprout, the name? And look at those fun little leaves inside there, right? Another piece of information, these are cruciferous vegetables. So cruciferous vegetables we know have lots of antioxidants, so very healthful benefits for us. And if you think about the cross section, so this looks we call it cruciferous, so it's a crucifix, so you have a cross shape. And that's where they get the name cruciferous. So other vegetables that fall into that category are cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. So that is one of the benefits of cruciferous veggies, is that loaded with antioxidants. But how do we get the name? We're trying to go even half. Any guesses on that?
From Brussels.
Absolutely. What a good guess. Brussels was the beginning. And Brussels sprouts have been around for 13th century. We have tracking back to them. So they're not native to the US. They actually were brought over by the French colonists back in the 18th century. And they are, they're grown in the US now, but we didn't have them prior to them being brought over. So benefits of world travel and trade, right? So they were brought over to Louisiana by the French in the 18th century. They're really a benefit to them. I mean, they have lots, like I said, they're packed with nutrients. And I can tell you that growing up, and Jesse and I were talking about this, we hated Brussels sprouts because we grew up with them steamed. And if you ever have had steamed cabbage or steamed Brussels sprouts, the flavor was just, And so once they started the idea of roasting them, it brought on a whole new meaning to people eating Brussels sprouts. And so more people are using them today than they ever used to. And if you find them ever in a grocery store, sometimes they're on the stick that they're grown with. So it's kind of fun to buy them that way. These are obviously off the stick, but you ever find them on the stick, it's kind of fun to buy. Sometimes they'll bring them in now because Thanksgiving is definitely a time when they like to bring them in. All right. How's my chefs out there? Doing well? But what's that? Steaming things? Oh, yeah. There's a purpose, but that is not one for Brussels sprouts. Definitely not. Okay, so get a good sized pan and you're going to put your oil into that pan. And my pan is pretty cold, but it talked about a cold pan. So get your oil, and this is the one that probably leaked.
Yes.
This is the potential that you might have had some leakage on that because the lids were just not quite snug. So just check your amount, because we're going to use the olive oil there. So if you need to add more, you can. And I'm going to stir my soup a bit. Yeah, coat the bottom of your pan. Those still look good. Okay, so I got the Brussels sprouts going. So we're going to coat the bottom of the pan. So I'll swirl it around. So you basically are going to put your face down, cut face down onto that oil. Okay. So you can arrange them. The bottom of it, there's no specific arrangement. You just want to try and get those flat to the bottom. The extra leaves, like I talked about, keep them and use them for they'll still cook nicely. And then you have a lid. If you don't have a lid that fits a pan, use aluminum foil would work. Just get a good tight seal. All right. And these are going to cook for about between 5 and 7 minutes. So if you are using, I think it talks about medium high heat. Doesn't say. I think we're going to try medium. Does it say? Pretty big one, pretty big heat. Sprinkle, put the lid on the pan. High, there it is, medium high. All right, so after you get them all arranged, we're going to transfer them to our cooking area, and I'll move my soup because now I've got it at boil. Move that to the back. That can sit as we're cooking our Brussels sprouts. Our kabocha is almost done. So we're going to get this here. We put it on all flat. We're going to put our lid on. So you're going to put the lid across it. Don't touch the lid. Don't lift the lid. Don't move the lid. Don't shake the pan. Don't do anything with it, but to turn the heat source up to medium high. And then we're going to cook it for 5. Oh, we need to put on we put the salt and pepper on after. So you're going to cook it without salt and pepper. You're going to get your medium high. So I'm going to go up to high first and then take it down a notch. And we're going for a 5-minute timer. And then we'll look at that point and see where we are. But we want to get them kind of that golden brown. While we're waiting for that, I'll check my time on my kabocha. Yeah. Oh, hot. Yeah, nice, and they're getting softer. I'd say we have probably, it's probably going to be, I think my oven wasn't as hot, although they're pretty soft. So we want to get to yeah, those are soft. You want to get to that consistency. I think I'll go two more minutes with those. 2 minutes on the kabocha before we get that ready. I'll chop up parsley. So if you want to use your parsley, you can use some of the stems. You don't have to throw away all that, and you can use a chunk of the stem. So we're going to get a nice chopped up parsley. This is for the Brussels sprouts. The other one is going to be for the soup at the end. And I can hear my Brussels sprouts. As someone that likes to cook, my temptation to turn that to open the lid is pretty strong right now, but I will leave it. I will trust our our person writing that recipe that they knew that they know what they're talking about. So we're gonna shoot for that. So we've got our kabocha, like, yeah, about 2 more minutes, 3 more minutes. That'll make it soft. You've got marshmallows. Oh, the butter. Ooh, we forgot about the butter. So we're gonna brown. You're gonna brown your butter. So we have a 1/4 cup of butter. And I will take that here. Okay, we're gonna melt it to the point where it starts to bubble. And then we want to get it to brown. Oop, come on. There we go. Oh. All right. So as we know, butter will burn. It has a low melt point, so it will burn quickly. So you don't want to do your heat source too hot, but you want to get it to the point where we're going to get it nice and gold. It's going to turn a golden brown. And this is also where we get ghee, right? Ghee is also another name for clarified butter that's been browned. So this is somewhat of the process. Squash is ready. So we're going to let that butter sit there for a second. I will jump back and grab my, and I would say, yeah. Okay, so there is your roasted kabocha. Oh, and it smells so yummy. So we'll put that, I think I'll put that here on the countertop. And again, as I mentioned before, when you're ready to finish the kabocha and you're ready, you're going to be using it for your serving dish. You could transfer it into something else if you wanted to, but we'll use it. This is your pan that you can definitely use. How's my time on my Brussels? Making me nervous. I hear them smacking and popping. And my butter is like boiling. So here's your butter going. So I've got about a minute before I hit 5 on the Brussels. All right, so you can kind of see where it's starting to turn a little bit brown because we want to get to that golden. This is what we call brown butter. And we don't want to overcook it because it will burn. But if you were to ever clarify butter, you'd take all this, the solids off, and you have that pure, nice, good flavor underneath. So there's, yeah, look at that. We got brown. You got golden. If you go a little further, it gets to, you know, the more you toast it, the more nutty it gets, that kind of nutty flavor. But we've got a nice browned consistency. So that's a really good brown golden look. So I can put that back. Actually, I'm going to take that completely off the heat so it doesn't go any darker. How's my my Brussels? 10 seconds. Woo. We ready to check them? So I'm going to dump this off while I'm waiting. Okay. We're good. Okay, ready? I'm nervous. This isn't too hot. Woo! All right. Now you want to shake up. Now is the woo-wee. They're jumping on me. So if you don't want them to be quite as dark, then I did it for 5 minutes. Sticking on the edges. So you're basically trying to get that other, there we go. Thanks, Kelly. Trying to get the other side. They're gonna jump around a little bit. They're hot in the pan. Okay. So we're going to cook them maybe another 5 minutes or so that we can get the other areas toasted, and then they're going to get fork tender. And you can do this uncovered for about 5 more minutes, and they're going to be tender to the, you know, when you put a fork in them, they'll be tender. All right. There we go. Our soup is still simmering. nicely. And again, if you want to let it go a little bit longer, your celery carrots will get a little softer. If you're worried about bean softness, then maybe you bring it down a little bit less. But we're going to now, since we've got those Brussels sprouts cooking up a bit, I'm going to turn my heat down. So now we are going to put some butter across the top of our, I actually need I think I had a spoon in here. Actually a spoon. So we're going to use, instead of a wooden spoon for the butter, I'm going to grab a regular spoon. Get your marshmallows ready. This is for the Brussels sprouts, your salt and pepper. That should be really the only thing left except for your parsley that we'll chop up. Parsley soup has the spinach and cheese still and parsley. So here we go. We're going to put this across the kabocha. You really want to coat it. If you don't want to use all the butter, that's absolutely okay. So we're just going to coat the kabocha. So you might have some leftover. And actually, you can use some of that leftover butter and drizzle across the marshmallows after they have been cooked as well. So the butter is on there, and I'm going to kind of squeeze them into this side of the pan so that we can put our marshmallows. Oh, I can smell that. Yum. So we have, for the kabocha, we have the marshmallows left, and that's it. Salt and pepper was on there before we did the roasting. What's that? Oh, the pecans too. So you can sprinkle on your marshmallows. And like I said, that's why I kind of crowded them in an area. If you have a smaller pan that you want to put it together in, you could do it that way as well. You've got your pecans, and we'll scrape across. And again, you can save marshmallows for garnish if you wanted to. Although you want to get them toasted, you could save some of the pecans for your extra garnish. So we're going to put this in the oven and broil it. And again, if you have an electric stove, your broiler is at the top of the stove. So get your roasting pan high up so that you shift your rack. So move the rack in your oven up a notch so that you have that ability to roast it. And then you'll put them into broil for like 2 to 3 minutes, and then you are done. So we're going to put that in the broiler, let that go. My Brussels sprouts, and I can probably tell soft-wise. Yeah, those are, what's the time on my Brussels sprouts? Done. Yeah, we hit that 5 minutes. So they are pretty tender. All right, so you can add your, to your Brussels sprouts now, you can add your parsley. And we have a juice of a lemon. So you have a quarter lemon. Okay, and careful with the seeds. Pluck your seeds out of your lemon. Or if you want, you could put it in over a strainer, or you could squeeze it into a container. So I think what I'll do is squeeze it into a, I can squeeze it into the olive oil container. That way I don't get any seeds, which inevitably you will. Okay, so you've got your lemon. Whoops. Pull your seeds out. Okay, and then you can, I'm going to turn my heat off. We're going to drizzle this across. Add your salt and pepper. And we'll move these around a little bit. We'll put our parsley on it. Oops, let me move I want to keep those to the side. We'll sprinkle our parsley. And grated parmesan. I'll just do that across the top. Okay, and you could have done that while it's in if you put it into a serving dish, you could do that. And we have finished Brussels sprouts. So this is what your You could, like I said, sprinkle it after you've taken it out of the pan, put it on your dish. And we're going to put our spinach, last things up with our soup. We're going to put the spinach and the parsley. Need to chop that up real quick on top of the soup. So we're going to put our spinach in there just to the point of wilting. So you can dump that in and it will wilt. What I can do, Kelly, is move it forward, trade spots. Turn that off. Simmer. We'll move that into here. And we have parsley that we'll add at the very end as well. You just want to get this to the point where your spinach has wilted and then it's perfectly soft. So you have Parmesan cheese across the top with your parsley. And there is your bean soup. And again, you have a variety of wonderful things. And don't forget to look up Josh Groban's bean song. It will make you smile. If anything, if you need a smile this evening, that will take care of that. All right, so I think we are done. We have did the roasted not quite done? Okay, so we have, we put it into a ramekin. So here is your roasted marshmallows and kabocha. Okay, and we drizzled a little bit of that, like I had leftover butter. So I drizzled a little bit more on the top and that kind of gave it a little bit more of a glazed top. And then you are set to go. So, wow, 6:02, we did it. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We all have stuff to be thankful for. I am thankful for Kelly, Jesse, Junior, and Jasmine tonight. We thank all of you for joining us too. I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Indulge, enjoy in the fun things that you love to cook, and we'll see you back in December. Keep an eye open for our email that comes out about what our plans are for December. Good night, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.